सही पकड़ा जमा बोर्ड सही रहे जी ओके Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to start our second lecture and our fourth topic, which is Sir Syed Ahmed Khan's contribution towards education and social reform. And first we are going to discuss his contribution towards the education, or I must say the modern education of the subcontinent. As we discussed it in our previous lectures, that the condition of the Muslims was very pathetic after the war of independence, and Sir Syed Ahmed Khan showed his role in the development of the Muslims in different ways. So the modern education, as I told you before, that whenever we talk about the modern education or the history of the modern education in the subcontinent, definitely Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, it is incomplete without Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. So it started with a school in Moradabad in 1859, and then in 1920 the Aligarh College became Aligarh University. Okay, now let's discuss this history. Okay, so as I told you that according to Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, the only solution of the Muslims problem was to get modern education. So what he did, he wrote different articles, he wrote different magazines to attract the Muslim towards this Western education, or at least to remove their ambiguities and to make them realize that this modern education is very much important for them if they want to be developed as a developed nation. So he established the first school in Moradabad in 1859, and then one of his I must say a great achievement of the establishment of the Scientific Society in 1863. Okay, what was the purpose of Scientific Society? In fact, as I told you, Sir Syed Ahmed Khan wanted the Muslim to get the modern education, and they should understand the scientific work or the work of the West. And as you know this thing very well, that the Muslims were not, they had no knowledge in English. So the purpose of the Scientific Society was to translate the Western books into Urdu, so the Muslims can understand their work. Acha. So mostly they translated the books related to the English his history books into Urdu, and especially they discussed those kind of, they translated those kind of books which discuss the rise and fall of the nations. It contributed a lot, this Scientific Society. And then Aligarh Institute Gazette in 1864, Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, he was transferred to Aligarh. You know this thing very well, that he was working for the government, for the British government. And then after the construction of the establishment of the Scientific Society, several meetings were held, and they discussed different topics under the umbrella of this society. Different books were translated, especially the history of the India, ancient Greek history, and then this society published a newspaper in March 1866. In March 1866, this society published a newspaper, a gazette, and the newspaper published articles about different topics: political, economical, education, and different social issues. They discussed different type of topics related to the all aspects of the life in this newspaper. Okay. Mostly in the beginning, the newspaper published different topics regarding the political issues, but and those were also written by the Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, and so the major purpose of this newspaper was to tell the Britisher that what is the cause of the war of independence, what are the feelings of the Indians, and then the major thing was that the Muslims or the local Indians, they should be aware of, or they should be familiarized of the British government. And then the next thing is Committee Khwastgaran. Okay, Syed Ahmed Khan established a committee Khwastgaran at Banaras for the educational objectives. And what was the objective of the establishment of this committee? The first thing was they wanted to find out that why the Muslims are reluctant to receive or to get this modern education. What are their fears? What do they want? What are the causes? What are the problems? So this committee fulfilled its objectives, and they came to a conclusion that the Muslims should have their own separate educational institutions. There were so many, they did their research in a very better way, and they realized this thing, that Muslims are very afraid of these modern education institute established by the British government, because they had a fear that if they'll get education there, they may lose their identity, or it is harmful for their faith or Islam. So another committee, after the conclusion of this committee, another committee was established to collect funds for those educational institutes which was in their mind that they are going to establish such kind of separate educational institutes for the Muslims. Now the milestone, Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental School, Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental School in 1875. It was inaugurated in May 1875. At that time, Lord Northbrook, he donated 10,000 rupees. In a very short time, the number of the students increased. 17 teachers were appointed. Maulvi Samuel Haq, he one of the very famous personality, he also showed very keen interest in this school. Actually, the basic aim of this Anglo-Oriental Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental school was so the Muslims can receive Eastern as well as Western knowledge. And then it became college in 1877. Lord Lytton inaugurated it. The most important thing is that the teachers, different teachers from the Western universities, they came here and they were appointed as teachers here by Sir Syed Ahmed Khan himself. The main stress in this MAO College was that the Muslims should get religious education as well as I told you, the modern education. So the stress was given to the religious education, and offering prayer was must. Different societies were established in this college, and a union was set up on the Cambridge University pattern for debates and speeches. I must say that they were grooming the personality of the students, and they were developing the overall personality of the students. In fact, they were preparing the leaders for the future. And it is a milestone in the history of the education of the subcontinent. Now, the most important thing is Mohammedan Educational Conference and its objectives. In 1886, Sir Syed Ahmed Khan established Mohammedan Educational Conference. What was the objective of this Mohammedan Educational Conference? For the educational development of the Muslim, definitely. In fact, they wanted to impart higher education to the Muslims, and they collected information about the condition of the religious education of the different madrasas of that time, and they wanted to improve the syllabus of those madrasas according to the new era, and they also wanted to include modern education in those madrasas. And then one another thing, the objective of this conference was to know the causes of the failing condition of the Muslims, the religious education institutions, and of course, and they wanted to remove it with taking different kind of steps. Meetings were regularly held of the educational conference, Muhammadan educational conference. Different issues, especially educational issues, were discussed there. Actually, this Muhammadan educational conference helped to spread the cause of the Aligarh over India. So Syed Ahmed Khan was the heart and soul of this educational conference. He performed his duty as secretary of this conference for 10 years. Maulana Shibli and Maulana Hali, you know, the famous personalities, they gave their services, and through different poems and their writings. Of course, you know this thing that Maulana Shibli Nomani wrote Siratul Nabi. Okay, Mohsen Mulk and Maulvi Nazir Ahmed, they also their speeches encouraged Muslims. In fact, this educational conference helped to improve Urdu again. So we must say that this educational conference has a very important role in the history of education of the subcontinent, and then also it gave an opportunity to the Muslims to create Muslim League, the Muslim League. And Sir Syed Ahmed Khan delivered his famous speech against the Congress from the platform of the Muhammadan educational conference. So these are the educational services of Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. In our next lecture, inshallah, we will discuss the personality of Sir Syed Ahmed Khan as a social reformer.